That's why we like the Olympics, because we get to see a lot of cultures, shapes, and sizes and diversity. It brings in their swag. When someone like that, and they haven't been able to see themselves in running before, they can see how they run now. Like, that person runs just like me, and I want to be interested in that now.
This is Running for Real, the podcast for runners who know that for every runner's high, there are just as many lows. All those just missed PRs, easy runs that feel hard, injury blues, and more. Each week, we'll talk to running, health, and wellness experts about their highs, lows, and best advice to build our confidence. Running for Real is about being honest, being brave, and most of all, not feeling alone. And now here's our host, Tina Muir.
Hello, my friends. Welcome to episode 201 of the Running for Real podcast. If this is your first episode you are joining, welcome. I'm excited to have you. If this is your 201st episode, you better have emailed me by now to let me know. I would love to give a shout out to anyone who has listened to all 200 of the previous episodes, because that is impressive. I don't even think my mum has listened. Actually, that's not true, because guys, I would be surprised if my mum has listened to any of my podcast episodes. She's not really a podcast person. So not a good example in this situation, but you know what I mean. So if you have listened to all of the episodes, let me know. I would love to give you a shout out in future episodes. So last week, I actually, as of this recording, do not know who we had. It was episode 200, and I'm still figuring that out as of recording this. But as you should know by now, if you are a regular listener, I like to record my episodes ahead of time, because I'm not really into kind of the news stories. I like to really think about questions for my guests. I do tend to get the guests that have been on a lot of shows before, but I like to go deeper and think of different questions. So that's kind of the thing that I don't mind doing, because I record ahead of time. So it's okay, because I like to think that these episodes are evergreen and can kind of apply to any situation. However, this is a special one for these two guys who you are going to meet today. We're going to get to meet Aaron and Joshua Potts, and I'm excited for you to get to know them. I'd been really impressed with what they'd been doing with the Running Report and their Two Black Runners podcast. I'd really enjoyed listening to a few of their episodes while I was on my maternity leave. And I wanted to give them, a platform, give them a way to kind of expand their community, get some new listeners, and just share their message. And I really enjoyed this conversation. I knew I would, but even more than I thought I would. I just really found it easy to talk to these guys, even about things that can be a bit uncomfortable. I just found them so easy to talk to. So I really enjoyed that. And I think you're going to enjoy it too. I like to hope that everyone's going to get a lot out of this and give you some things to think about. And I would love to hear your feedback on this. So if you did enjoy the episode, please give it a share. Not only are you helping me, you are also helping the community by helping to educate people. And you're also helping these guys to get their message out with such an important thing that they're doing here. So I want to just take a moment to thank our sponsor, and we'll be right to the episode with Aaron and Joshua Potts. Thank you to Tracksmith for sponsoring this episode of the Running for Real podcast. Now, you've heard me talking about Tracksmith for months now, how I love their products, and particularly now, their products have become very useful within my life. I wear them pretty much every day just throughout my lives. Their clothes are cute enough to where you can actually get away with wearing them as everyday clothing without it looking so much like you're wearing running clothes. And when I say cute, guys, this is for you too. It doesn't have to use the word cute. I could say manly or handsome clothes as well. But anyway, I love the fact that I can wear these clothes every day, and then the next day I can put them on and use them as my running clothes or my workout clothes. It also works for me while I'm in this early newborn baby plus toddler phase, where I can be wearing these clothes, and with a moment's notice, when they both coincidentally, the stars align, they fall asleep at the same time, I can quickly jump into workout mode, get a workout in, and not have to waste those precious few minutes going to get changed. So I really am loving Tracksmith for that reason. The Twilight Tank has been my go-to. I just think they're so nice looking. They're so comfortable. They're so light. They dry really quickly. And I'm just really enjoying those. So that's my thing I wanted to give a shout out to today. Also, did you hear about this fellowship that Tracksmith is offering? This is so cool and shows how much heart and passion this company has for the running industry. They are going to provide this platform for emerging creatives in running, offering both the funds and the support needed to pursue a project that will elevate the sport, drive conversation, and empower new perspectives. They're going to fund projects from 3 to 5 creators, and it could be film, photography, poetry, fiction, podcasts, music, painting, or sculpture. They invite runners to submit concepts for a year-long creative grant. Now, these ideas should be grounded within the running's experience and have the aim of inspiring and igniting action within the larger running community. You have until September 1st to submit your application, and they're going to announce fellowship recipients in October. So go jump on this if you are a creative and have always had that thing that you wanted to do. Why not? What do you have to lose? Now, if you want to go get that Twilight tank that I mentioned, or you want to support Tracksmith or support me, you can go to tracksmith.com and use code 4REAL15. That's FORREAL 15 for $15 off your first purchase of $75 or more. That's code 4REAL15 for $15 off your first purchase of $75 or more. Go to tracksmith.com to check it out. Aaron, Joshua, welcome to the Running for Real podcast. I am excited to bring you both on here on your first podcast. So welcome to the show.
Yes,
Thank you.
Super excited.
So I say first podcast to those listening, and that's kind of not right because they do host their own running podcast, but this is their first time of being the guest on a podcast. So I'm excited to break that mold with you. Although I'm hoping, as I'm recording this a bit early, that someone else isn't going to sneak in there and get theirs out first, because then maybe this won't be. But as I said, you do host your own podcast. You are the hosts of the Two Black Runners podcast, and you are also both very involved in the owners, would that be the term, of the Running Report YouTube channel. Joshua, is it? And what is the name of a YouTuber? Yeah. What is the term?
I would say, like, right now we kind of are like YouTubers, but we're definitely like returning into like podcasters too. Mm-hmm. But Running Report is sort of like, I imagine it as hopefully one day as its own network. I see it as like a network or of a website or some type of entity like that, where we can have several shows like the Two Black Runners, like our own Running Report show, and other things above that just like amplifies athletes, tells track in like an entertaining way. Mm-hmm. And Running Report YouTube channel and Instagram is where we hold most of that, where we show a lot of news and just fun stuff involved with running, I would say. Yeah,
it's pretty cool. Although you just stole one of my questions, because that was what I was going to ask you in a few minutes. So I can tell you're a podcaster because you've already got one of the questions down that I was going to ask. And we will dive into that a bit deeper. Oh, no, you're fine. So as brothers, you know each other quite well. I didn't mention that at the beginning. These two are brothers, which probably was given away by the name, I suppose. But I'm going to put you on the spot. So rather than you describing yourselves, you're going to describe each other. Because I know how much I would hate doing that for my sister. So I'm going to have you do it just because it's going to be fun. All right. So Aaron, let's start with you. How would you describe Joshua?
Joshua's a beast, man. If you guys don't know, dude, this guy is a beast, bro. This guy does all the editing. He's a go-getter, self-starter, and he's also just a very friendly and nice person. I think a lot of people can talk to him very easily. Mm-hmm. He's very encouraging, very loyal to all of his friends. Honestly, I feel like I'm a hype man a little bit for Joshua, because I be talking this dude up a lot. Oh. But no, Joshua, overall, man, Joshua is just a really nice guy. He treats everyone he comes in contact the same. I've never seen him treat anyone unfairly. I think all of his friends would say the same thing. He's just a very loyal and he's a leader as well. He's always going to stand up for whatever he believes is right. And he's very strong in his beliefs and his values, and he's not going to waver. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why a lot of people easily gravitate towards him, because he knows himself. He knows himself, and he always has. He knows what his core values are. Just because something's trendy or cool, that's not going to change who he is. And yeah, I think that's awesome. That's awesome about him.
And that is quite impressive. I mean, Aaron, I know you can more speak to this, but Joshua, are you 19, 20, 21? Somewhere
I'm
around
20.
20. And that's pretty impressive to have figured that out and to feel that way at that age. I feel like I'm just starting to scratch the surface of that at age 32 will be by the time this comes out. So yeah, I love hearing that, Aaron, because Joshua, that doesn't come along very often. So it's really cool and exciting to think about how wise you're going to be at age 30, 40, 50 and beyond. So, all right, your turn to tell us about Aaron.
Oh, first off, appreciate it, Aaron. Appreciate the love, always. But especially Aaron, I think the biggest word like to describe Aaron would be passionate. Like he's one of the most passionate people that I've met or I've known all my life. When it just comes to sitting around the dinner table, talking about like our favorite basketball teams, our favorite NFL teams, to deeper issues on talking about our like daily lives. So growing up as a Black man, he's very just educated and passionate in pretty much everything that he does. And I feel like Aaron, like he's my big brother, but he's like everything that personifies like a big brother. Like Aaron, I have 3 older brothers. I'm the youngest. And I remember back in the day when I was like 10 years old, 6, 7 years old, Aaron would always be the one to try and come play with me with my wrestling toys. Like he would play with me and we would just like create. And he was always the big brother. All my brothers were big brothers, but he was always a big brother to me. And someone that I always really looked up to. So he's someone that has led me and has shown me what's it like to be passionate and have a love for running and have a love for anything, even if that's in Christ as well, and just being a leader in that type of way. And like, I think like myself, like Aaron also, people do gravitate towards Aaron. And like, honestly, Aaron's a beast too. Aaron's a beast too. And a lot of people like, he's just casual and well, I would say I'm more casual. Aaron's the passionate, in your face, but I'm a little more chill. But Aaron's always a good dude to have around for sure.
I love that. You guys, A+ for describing one another. That was just smiling, as you can tell, the whole way through that. That is just so cool to hear. Okay, so you mentioned that you have, well, between you, do you have two more brothers? And so that's a family of 6 who you're very involved in running from when you were kids. Why do you think it was running was it you both were individually attracted to running, or was it something that your family did? So maybe Aaron, as the older one, you could start with that one.
Yeah, so it all started with our oldest brother. So our dad was actually a professional boxer for a little bit. And, you know, when you're boxing, you're always going out on runs and everything. And our dad always told us it's not cool to get hit in the head. So he wouldn't want to train us up in boxing, which people are lucky because, you know, a couple would have got knocked out. But but he saw track and field as an opportunity for us to go get into a sport and get scholarships to go to school. And that was like the biggest purpose of it all, was to get that scholarship so we could get educated and go to school. Because our mom, she went to college and everything. Our dad, he didn't have that opportunity or support from his parents to go to college, and he wished he would have had something like that. So he always instilled that into us. And our oldest brother, Caleb, was all very, very good at the sport from the beginning. He had talent in it, and our coach on our first club team recognized that. And me seeing that I'm the second oldest, me seeing that as a younger brother made me naturally want to also get involved in the sport. And it just continued to trickle down, and we got to see like more success, because Caleb, our older brother, you know, as a kid, he was always the top on his age division, like always going to the Junior Olympics. So if it's in him, it's in me, it's in you, and it's in you.
So was any part of that hard for you growing up? Kind of, I was very much kind of the stud of my family, and my sister kind of grew up in my shadow, and it was quite difficult for her at school, knowing that, you know, I was doing so well. Did you find that was hard for you, Aaron, with growing up in kind of Caleb being, you know, really good at the sport, and then it made you feel pressure, or did you find it motivational?
I would say it was a little bit of both. I would say that largely like shaped me into the person I am today, because through that, like I wasn't in club track. I was a late bloomer. Just in life in general, I've always been a late bloomer. I'm like 6 foot tall right now, but going to high school, I was like 5'2", 5'3". Mm-hmm. So I was always a late bloomer. And that's kind of like where my passion comes, because I always had a big chip on my shoulder. So I was really short, really skinny. I wasn't that fast yet, but my brother is killing it. So like, and I loved the track and field. So I always just had like a big chip on my shoulder, like wanting to prove people wrong. And it taught me how to just really, I was like, all right, I don't have any talent. Like, I'm not that talented. So I got to be better. Like, I would be the kid at practice. Like, you know, some kids, they don't want to do distance running. They don't think it's fun. Like, I'm out here at practice going hard every rep, you know, trying to get better. And it also taught me the value of like not being worried about everyone else. Because a lot of kids in club, you know, if you don't win, you're like crying or you're losing. Like me, as I wasn't winning these races, I learned to like find appreciation in PRing. So I'm like, I didn't win, but I got better. Like, I'm getting better. Like, I'm going to get there. I'm going to get there. And all it did was like, because me and my brother, me and Caleb, we have a great relationship too. It wasn't like I hated on him or nothing. And he was someone that I looked up to. So, and I was like, I know I can get there. And everyone always would tell me like, Aaron, like, we feel like you'd be a really good distance runner, like when you get older. But like, I went through so many different phases where I used to get mad when I lost and stuff. Mm-hmm. But like, it really just shaped me and it gave me the necessary chip on my shoulder to grind and get good. And eventually, like, I did get to that point where like, I was the only one in our family who made it to like state in high school. Like I've had like a great running career and depending on who you compare it on, but like my time came eventually. So I would definitely say there were some things that were hard about it, but ultimately like that was like a big part of my life that like shaped me and like my personality and just how I approach things.
Mm-hmm. And that's great advice for anyone listening. I mean, I'm sure many people have family members who are very good at the sport and do struggle with that themselves, or maybe even feel just like I'm never going to be any good, so why do I bother, just in general. So thank you for that advice, because I think that can apply to other people. And Joshua, what about you? How did you feel kind of coming up behind all your brothers, assuming the third one, or the fourth one, I guess, that you haven't mentioned his name yet, runs as well?
Oh, really? Just when I was younger, I feel like coming out the womb, like I was at track meets, like I was at club meets every Sunday, every Saturday, was literally just as a baby under the tent. And then I remember being 4 years old, seeing my older brothers at a track practice. And I was trying to go out there and run, but the coach wouldn't let me. Running was just something that I wanted to do. I wanted to be involved in the sport like so bad. Like we talked about this on our one of our latest podcasts with Mohamed. When Mohamed was saying that he was like running around the house after the 2004 Olympics. Like I literally did that every single day when I was like 5, 6, 7 years old. And I would like play around. Like if I'm in a marathon or anything like that, or like a 4x1, I would run back and forth with the batons that we had. So like, it was just, I wanted to do what my older brothers were doing. And I saw how good Caleb was in the 800. I saw how Aaron would run the 3000, and our other brother, David, he would throw shot put. So like, it was just like, okay, now it's my turn to finally perform. And I saw, and depending on just like, unlike like the pressure of everything, I kind of had like a little bit, I had more success in club, I would say, than Aaron, just because I wasn't really a late bloomer. Like in 6th grade, I was already 5'10", and I came into high school at basically 5'11", 6 foot. So like I was going to the JOs and everything like that. So my whole mentality was just like last one, best one. That's how I always felt. And just pushing it to reach their heights and try and be on the same level as them has really made me the person that I am, because I just want to be with my brothers. I want to be where they're at, and they were always leaders for me.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. That's really cool to learn about. And you're in college at Mount San Antonio, or Mount SAC as it's affectionately known, I guess.
Yeah.
And you run cross country. So I'd love to talk about that a little bit because, having done cross country myself in college here in the US and then also at home, you see very few Black runners in cross country. And you can obviously both speak to this, but why do you think that is? Like, why would it be cross country in the longer distance events that we don't see Black runners, but we do see, probably a lot more than you would see white runners doing the shorter distances and certain events. So why the longer distances do you think that's not been the case?
I think there's a lot of factors that goes into it, but I feel like one of the major factors is that once you get to high school, because in club is depending on which area you come from, we come from Southern California. So it was a lot of mix of races. On my club team in cross country, I was the only Black kid, but it was mostly Mexican. There was a kid that was mixed who was Black and Honduran. We had, I think, 2 white kids on our team, and then everyone else was Mexican. And we got second place in the Junior Olympics. So we saw a diversity a lot. But then once we got to high school, we started seeing we definitely sticked out more and more once you get to higher meets like Arcadia and, or if you got to state or you went to Portland, go race, you start to stick out more and more as a sore thumb. But I think it's just distance events aren't really highlighted as the superstars, and they're not highlighted as the superstars as a 100-meter dash would be highlighted as a superstar as a football player or a basketball player. And just a lot of African Americans don't see themselves as those football players that need to go up and run the 800, need to run the mile, run the 2 mile, even though they may have more talent. If they were to go up and run those events, especially the 800 or the mile, they could definitely do way better. But just not seeing that example from an African American perspective in the professional or collegiate level is something that I would never think I could be a superstar there. I could only be a superstar at the 1 or the 2.
And I also think...
Oh, yeah, go for it. I was going to ask you afterwards, but yeah, go for it.
I was going to say, I also think about it too as track and field is not really a sport where you're going to go out there and make a lot of money. And when you look at those other sports, basketball and football, those athletes that are most successful, a lot of the time, they come from underprivileged homes where they're not making a lot of money. So parents aren't gonna put their kids in a sport, or if they're in a sport, they're in there to trying to, move their, impact their parents' lives and help their lives and move things forward. So almost running track and field and cross country, just running it, for fun or whatever. Sometimes it's more so, that's almost like a privilege because a lot of these people are trying to these people are trying to make it out. So they're yo, I can't really waste my time running track and field. And when you look at these athletes in these other sports, they're all super, it's all about athleticism and speed. So they're all right, I'm going to do track and it's going to prepare me for basketball or it's going to prepare me for football. I know so many people that I grew up running club track with that ended up getting scholarships to go play football somewhere. But the thing is, it's our dad perspective was hey, he of course, if we did great and went professional, that's awesome. But he was more so go get this education. But a lot of people are more so go get this money. Yeah, it's going to get you this education for school. But also if you ball out, you're going to be getting $1 million. And I think that I just thought of that when Joshua was talking, but I feel that has to do something with it as well.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, just kind of, I know the work that I and many others listening have been doing on kind of dismantling racism here in the US. I definitely had thought about that myself about, yeah, you're right. That is a white privilege to be able to, well, not even just necessarily white, but primarily white privilege to be able to just say, what hobbies do I want to do? Like you said, that's not a reality if you need to help work early on and bring in money for the family to kind of help survive. So I'm glad you mentioned that, Aaron, because I think that is definitely a part of it. So then what can be done to get more Black runners to participate in the high school level, which will then lead to the collegiate level, scholarships, which would get them the education, as you said, but then also those role models that Joshua talked about to look up to for, younger, like basically kids that will be coming into the sport. What can be done? Aaron, maybe you can start to get more people into it at that base level.
I think a good way is coaching, like a coaching and being able, there's not that many Black distant coaches. Like once I got out of club, I never really had another like Black coach. And I feel like a lot of times, like some of those, because the Black athlete is going to come in and they don't see anyone that looks like them on that distance side. So they're going to be like, I need to run sprints, and they're going to want to run sprints. And they could be running the 400 for all these years, for 4 years in high school, and they're only running 52. And it's like, bro, you need to move up. You need to move up. But they want to run the 4. So we need coaches on the ground level too, to just, you got to like, get to these kids, like talk to them. It's like, hey, like you can get a scholarship if you just move up to distance. And I think you would be great. Of course, we need like role models and everything. But I also think that sometimes these Black athletes get looked over and get left at the sprints when they could be such great. There's so many sprinters out there that can be great distance runners, but they haven't even had anyone tell them that thought has never came into their mind.
I actually have seen that myself with my husband had an athlete, a Black guy a few years ago, and he was really good at the 8, but he kind of hit a ceiling. And my husband kept saying, move up to the mile, but he would not do it because he was like, no, I meant to do the 800, like this is my event. And, it was tough to kind of get that message across. But like you said, and I think, again, that role models things comes into it again in that aspect. So, Joshua, what would you add? What can be done?
I think especially it starts with the coaching and not even just like having a Black distance coach. This is actually at Mount SAC. This is the first time me having a Black distance coach since my dad. So it's definitely a different change of pace and definitely like more comforting. And to see like we have this is the most like Black people that I've seen on my cross country team, which is a great thing to see. But I think just all coaches and encouraging not just like the Black distance runners, but any sprinter or that type to know that there is a way that you can get a scholarship in distance running. Because especially speaking of high school or anything like that, like that's the main goal, to get a scholarship at that level. And I feel like there's often just like misinterpretation in track and field that like, yes, we are the most diverse sport because we're track and field and there's so many events and shapes and sizes and people from all different countries when you start speaking of the Olympics, because that's what the first thing you think of track and field, you think of the Olympics. But like, it's also one of the most segregated sports as well, especially when you look at a high school and college team. You see all the Black people or Black, I would even just say minority on the sprint side. And then especially in the US, it's mostly white people on the distance side. And that's something that you see constant throughout all the states. So like, I think, and I really feel like something like 2 Black runners and what we're doing in the running report, I hope that we can be that kind of like, be that visual for people, even though like me and Aaron, we're not professional runners yet. I'm gonna put that out yet. Not professional runners yet, but like we can be that face for that one Black kid in Maine who's the only Black kid on his cross country team, to show that like there's other distance runners just like you that get the same references of family matters and good times. And we can talk about that and bond over that with the podcast. So I really hope like that there's just, I hope that there and like people like Marielle Hall. I think Marielle is so great, because imagine Marielle finishing 3rd in the 10K at the Olympics. Like that would be awesome. Not just like for America, that would be awesome to have an American finish 3rd place or win the 10K in the Olympics. But then as an African-American woman to do it would just be the greatest example, I feel like, ever, to see that we can be there too.
Yes, definitely. It would shatter the kind of I don't want to say dystopia, but maybe that is the word of what many young kids, many young Black kids are seeing and thinking, well, I can't do that. That's not for me. So, well, let's get behind her and hope that she can manage it next year, right? So then, let's talk about that. So you had Marielle Hall on your podcast recently. Before we go into what you guys talked about, how did that feel interviewing someone like that?
It was awesome. It was cool. And I think a lot of our podcast in general, and just even like what we're doing right now, it's just like a conversation. And it's cool. What I think is really cool about Two Black Runners is like in track and field media, which is like another issue of why we don't see as many Black distance runners, but it's mostly like the flow tracks in the runner space. It's going to be predominantly like white, like older, like men. So I feel like when we bring in these guests like a Marielle Hall in, and she's talking to me and Joshua, she's 27, I'm 25, Joshua's 20. And then we can already relate on some of the things we've been through, like just being Black, and we're both distance runners. So I feel like we bring people in, and you don't see that a lot in track. In track, you don't see, you're not usually talking to someone that is like even like the same age as you. So to be honest, like it was fun, it was awesome and an honor, but it felt like I was just talking to a homie. So
that's good.
Yeah.
Well, that's exactly what you want with a podcast, isn't it? For someone to just be able to feel like you can be yourself and talk as you usually would. So that's really cool. Joshua, anything you'd add?
Oh, I just want to say having Marielle on and Corey Carter and even Michael Granville, he's like a local legend. It's been surreal. Like honestly, like just being these two people from like this small town, Eastville, California, like, and now we're interviewing all these pros and like loving track and field so much. It's so great because they don't just want to like, we just don't invite them on the podcast, but like, I feel like especially with Marielle, like she wanted to be there. She wanted to have the conversation and keep the conversation going. And that just made everything like so much better and like even more hype to like have her on the podcast. So I really just doing the podcast in the last, like it's only been 16 episodes and it should be more by the time this comes out, but I'm just so glad on how far like we've come since then. It's a really fun thing to do. Yeah,
it's really cool. And I want to stick to Marielle just for a second. So you talked about, young Black girls in particular, getting them into the sport. In some ways, that's even more complicated than men or boys. So through that discussion, what was your main conclusion about any maybe young Black girls listening, or what people who maybe their sons or daughters have friends who are Black and want to get them to join the team with them? What did you find? What did you kind of conclude there?
I just feel like by talking to Marielle and just the experience growing up, I just feel like for Black women in particular, like it's really not advertised to them at all. And I would love to see the percentage on like African American men and women in distance running, but I feel like it's smaller with women. But I don't feel like it's even advertised that much. But one thing I can say is like Marielle can definitely make a big difference, because if you look at the 800 meters for women, like we have a lot of Black women right now.
Yeah.
Raven Rogers, Sierra Brown, who else? Ajay Wilson. And like those people, they're all primarily new, but you're seeing the effects of that and how it's already like growing to the sport. And they're like, hey, like we can do this. But I do think there's some cultural things that kind of shoo Black women away a little bit. And like we talked on the podcast about hair, and that's like an actual issue. That's even an issue for Joshua with his braids when he goes and runs. You know
so
what I mean?
Explain that for someone who's thinking, what is that?
So if you have like braids or like Joshua has cornrows, like when you're running and you sweat, or you just sweat in general, you sweat out your braids so they don't look as crisp. So basically they're going to come out, and you're going to have, basically it's going to look like an afro on your head, and you have to keep on getting it redone. So if
which
you're
takes
like,
a long time, right?
which takes a long time and it costs money.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're like, as a woman, I can't really speak too much on the women's side because I don't know as much, but I could just say I used to have dreads. Josh has cornrows. I know that was like an issue for me to keep it uptight and clean, because when you have that afro, I'm not saying that looks totally bad, but society looks down on that.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, oh, your hair look nappy. Like, where are you going? And people are going to roast you, make fun of you. It's going to be harder when you're going to work. The people are going to say you're not looking professional and everything. So that's already a barrier. Imagine being a high school girl, and you're running every day and your hair getting all messed up and like people making fun of you or something, or you just feel a little insecure about that. And that's totally fine. I know when I have my one part of the reason I cut my dreads off is because like I couldn't like keep up with them the way I wanted to because how much I run.
Yeah. So
like that's definitely a barrier. And also you got to think about it like for women in general, it's already like not as safe to be out on a run. So you already have that. And then you're a Black woman out on a run. And we just know how this world is. And that's just already another like barrier for entry. So there's a lot to it. But mainly, I really think it is important for people like Marielle. I think she's gonna like affect change a lot because people are just gonna see like, oh, she's making it work. I can make it work. I can do that.
Hi, friends. I mentioned to you a few weeks ago that I am going to be featuring a Black-owned business for the rest of the year and maybe even beyond that. And last week we had Knox select the business of choice that he wanted you to check out, which is Heel House. Now, today I did ask Aaron and Joshua which brand they would like to highlight. And I did reach out to the brand that they recommended, and they were very interested, very excited, but they wanted to take a few moments to get some things together to kind of highlight some of the things that they're doing, because they are doing a lot for the running community and just to kind of make the world a better place. So I'm excited to share their story and a bit about them with you in a few weeks. However, I wanted to give them that time and not rush it out. So today I wanted to just tell you about another Black-owned business who Alexandra Will, who you will get to meet next week, gave me as a recommendation. She gave me plenty of businesses, and I'm really excited to highlight some of them in the coming weeks. But I want to tell you about TaylorMade, which is child and family services. And she offers online therapy, court-ordered services and educational classes and supervision. Absolutely something that is needed right now with this kind of climate that we are in. And I'm really excited to let you know about Erica. She's a licensed clinical social worker with a bachelor's and master's degree from the University of Texas at Arlington. She has 10 years of experience working with children, adults, and family in a variety of settings with diverse clients. And she has areas of expertise including anxiety and depression, relationship challenges, phases of life changes, life stresses, and the next steps. Now, those sound like they could speak to every single one of us listening right now with what is going on. And I want to encourage you to go check out TaylorMade Child and Family Services. If you are someone who is working through something and you think you want to support at the same time, why not support someone who is trying to make a name for themselves? And this Black-owned business, I'm really excited about. I think she has done a lot for the community, and I think you are really going to appreciate all that she is going to do. And I would love to hear if you reach out to her and have her help you. So you can go to tailormadecfs.org. That's tailormadecfs.org to check out TaylorMade Child and Family Services and get to know Erica a bit more, maybe give her a consult, see if she is someone who you would like to work with. Just wanted to take a moment to highlight what she is doing and to just give her a bit of a shout out. So thank you, Erica, and let's get back to the interview with Aaron and Joshua Potts.
For women in general, it's already like not as safe to be out on a run. So you already have that. And then you're a Black woman out on a run. And we just know how this world is. And that's just already another like barrier for entry. So there's a lot to it, but mainly I really think it is important for people like Marielle. I think she's gonna like affect change a lot because people are just gonna see like, oh, she's making it work. I can make it work. I can do that.
Thank you for explaining that. And I think that is the hair thing is a perfect example of something that we, myself and anyone listening as white people would not have to think about. I mean, I have very curly hair, and that in itself just frustrates me because of exactly what you mentioned, but I can imagine it's 10 times worse. And yeah, it is, annoying having to spend that time. And if, like you said, it costs money and it costs time to kind of get it redone all the time, that definitely would be a barrier to entry. And that's something, and a good example of something we just wouldn't think about if you have white skin. So talking about that more, you mentioned there, Aaron, about feeling unsafe as a woman, but would you say then that you think a Black woman overall would feel more unsafe than both of you as Black men, based on what we kind of saw with Ahmaud Arbery? Or would you say, because my gut thought would have been you two would have felt more unsafe than Marielle would running around, but would you say that's the case?
It's hard. I don't know. It's hard to, I can't really.
I guess you can't, you're not a woman, so you wouldn't know.
Depending, like for me and Joshua, it's all about like, depending on where you're going, like you're just more cognizant of where you are. And yeah, you're just more careful on that. But I'm not really like.
Do you feel unsafe on your runs sometimes?
It depends more so where I'm at, but I personally like, due to like my religious beliefs and everything, I don't live in fear. So like, I know God got me and I feel protected, but I am cognizant of where I'm going. Like I'm aware of my surroundings and I am aware of like what can happen to me, just as I believe like as a woman, you would say the same. Like, would you say like, are you like afraid when you run? Or are you just more so like, that something can happen to you?
Yeah, I think for me, like if I imagine running at like 4 a.m. when it's dark, I would be very hyper aware of what was going on, just because I know that's when, if someone was going to come grab me, that's when it would likely happen. Whereas for you, it's more probably like areas than time.
And it's like
absolutely.
I would say it's more so areas. Like we live in there's this town called Norco, USA, and it's just like dirt everywhere. It's like a really cowboy town. Like people have
Horsetown, USA.
So it's
that's
like
their slogan.
Yeah, so it's like you might have to. You don't know what's gonna happen. You don't know what's gonna happen.
And what would you add, Joshua?
Well, I would just say I think like Aaron, I don't run in fear every single like day, but there is definitely moments of like fear or just being uncomfortable, and a lot of that has come from like the prejudiced towns, or I don't want to call the whole town prejudice, but the more like prejudice or the feeling of prejudice areas that have ran through like that once. That's the city, Norco. I've ran through when I was in high school when I was 16 years old, and these two younger white people, I feel like they're around my same age. They're in a black pickup truck and they threw a water bottle at me. And while my whole entire other team was 100 meters behind me and I was in the front, they threw a water bottle at me for, I can't tell you for the apparent reason that they did it, but by the color of my skin and the history of Norco, California, you can take a good guess. And the same thing has happened to another black person that's on my team. He has had a milkshake thrown at him with a truck going past him, and they throw a milkshake at him and hit him. So like those type of things, it's something that every single time I still run through Norco today. I did a 9-mile run in Norco this morning, but it's like we really just, when I'm running around Norco, I'm always just, the thought comes across your mind, but it's the same thing that running is also our escape. Like that's the one time a day. If I'm not running, especially if I'm running by myself, that's the time of day that I really get to talk to myself and think about things. And if I'm running with someone else, that's really my escape. Just the way that I watch TV, just the way that I read a book, like that's where I'm at, like my happiest places of the day. So I'm not really thinking about that all the time. But when I start seeing certain signals, I'm definitely tensing up and being a little bit, what's going on around here, you know?
And did your parents talk to you both about kind of paying attention and being alert, kind of as you started going out on runs on your own?
I don't think there was ever like a conversation at the start of that, but I think me and Aaron and our brothers, I feel like we've always been like racially conscious of the situations and everything. Like, I don't know if this is, if every kid should do this, but like when we were little, I remember, like I had to be at least 8 years old. Like I was watching Roots. Like that was a show that we all watched. Like we watched The Great Debaters. We watched Glory Road. And we were always like our grandma's from Mississippi, our grandpa's from Louisiana. Like these are things that we constantly talk about. You can go to our family dinner. Now we haven't had family dinner in a minute, our Zoom meetings with our families, but like they'll just talk for hours, and it always comes to race because that's something that we constantly deal with. So it wasn't a straight up conversation of this and that, but it's a constant conversation because it's always changing, I would feel like.
Yeah. Aaron, anything to say?
Yeah, like Joshua just hit everything on the head. Like there's never was like, I mean, there's been conversations, but like it's just something that it has to be talked about because there's things that can happen and there's things that have happened. So race, I feel like for Black people in general, honestly, for most Black people, is something that is just natural to talk about because you deal with it every day. And people ask me all the time, like at work, it's like, yo, it's so easy for you to like talk about this. And I'm like, yeah, like it's just what we grew up doing and seeing. Yeah. And like, I think about back to like things that have happened in my life too, in hindsight, like how much race was involved. And like, I even think like when I was in high school, like my mom would hate when I would go run at night. She'd be like, can you get a headlamp? And she'd be like scared, you know? And I was like thinking about that the other day and I was like, that can't just be because that part of that reason was because, you know, I'm just like this Black guy running in this suburban neighborhood, like late at night. And you know, you saw him at Aubrey, like, you know, that's kind of scary for a mom.
So would you say what's been going on has kind of made you both kind of look back on things and the way you were treated over your life? Or is that something you've always basically, other than what you just mentioned, everything is, you've kind of always been aware of the way you've been treated?
It's definitely, I've always been aware, but my Aubrey just made it like, that made it real. I feel like, because yeah, that really just made it real. Cause like right when I seen that, definitely hearing that he was running, like, it's just like that could happen to me. Even worse, that can happen to Aaron. That can happen to Caleb. That can happen to David. That can happen to anybody in my family that goes out for a walk or a run. And that could easily be one of us. And especially the experiences that we've had in the past. So like, definitely things have been heightened since then. But like in running, you kind of forget once you're in the midst of running, but things definitely have been heightened. I would say the senses are a little bit more keen now.
I would say for me, like, yeah, I've always been aware of how I've been treated and everything. But I also just think like as a Black person, a lot, you bottle stuff down and you learn how to just like deal with some things because you can't fight everybody. Like these little like microaggressions you get like growing up.
Can you just explain that for someone who hasn't heard of that term before? Sorry, I'm just, for anyone who is totally like, I want this to be like a starting point where people can go. So.
Yeah. Example of a microaggression would be like, man, like people have told me and Joshua this all the time. Like, yeah, you're not like our other Black friends. Like you're so different from our other Black friends. And it's like what does that mean? Or someone will be like, Aaron, like, how do you wash your hair? Can I touch your hair? Like, as if you're like a creature. Or like someone be like, oh my gosh, why are you so dark? Or like, you'd be like, oh, I don't like rap music. Or someone be like, did you listen to that new Kendrick song? And I'm like, no. It's like, dang, I'm blacker than you. And it's like, I used to have people that tell me growing up, like, we play basketball, and they'd be like, yeah, Aaron, you're only fast because you're only good because you're black. You're only fast because you're black. So when you say stuff like that, like Marielle Hall, you should read her article. She talks about being seen. What was it? Being seen and being seen in her. I don't know.
I'll put a link in the show notes.
Yeah, you're not actually, when you say stuff like that, you're not actually seeing me as a person. You're just seeing black. Like everything I do, you're just like black, you know? And that, so like, I feel like it just, for me, it like opened up a lot of wounds, because I've had a lot of bad experiences. Like even like from a kid, like growing up at kid in elementary school, like people would say I was ugly, like just because I was black, because I was dark skinned. I'm like considered just like, people just consider you ugly. And it's just like, you don't really realize, like, I feel like a lot of black people have these things that happen to them over time. I've had big things happen with the police as well that are crazy. But I think these like little things that you just brush over because you can't fight everybody all the time. I feel like those things really do like affect people, and they build up. And when things like this happen, it just reopens all of those wounds, and it reopens trauma, because the feelings that you have of being treated unfairly, your mom had those feelings, your grandparent had that feeling, your it goes all the way back to slavery.
Yeah.
So that's what I have discovered through this. Like, I feel like when those things happen to you, you're feeling the same thing that a slave felt in some way.
Yeah. Well, thank you both for sharing that with me, because I know that's one of the things that is kind of coming out right now, that it is exhausting to keep talking about these things. And that's kind of why I wanted to use my platform, so that you don't have to say it to thousands of people separately, but it can get these messages across. And I know it is a lot to share this, and you're sharing your heart, and I really appreciate you both doing this. So just want to say thank you again, and I will at the end. But for a white person who is listening, what would you like them to know about, approaching a runner of color or a black runner? Like, for someone listening who's thinking, I always see this black runner out on my running route, and I want to say hi, but then I feel like maybe that's me being, like, am I seeking them out? Am I being racist by saying, oh, I better make sure I say hi to them because they're treated badly? What would you say to that person? And what would be your general advice to my white listeners who want to make it a more inclusive place?
My thing has always been like, treat them like a normal person. If that was a white person, like, your reason, like I said, there's like, you're only seeing black if you're going up to them for that. Like, we talked about this on Two Black Runners. Don't listen to Two Black Runners just because it's Two Black Runners. Listen to it because you like the content that we bring, And it's like, don't treat people like a creature, Like, go talk to that person because they're a runner. Yes, they are black, but they are also a runner, and they have a job. They probably do a bunch of things. Like, the main thing is, if you are being genuine and want to just meet this person, I think you're going to be like 99% of the time, like, you're going to be fine. But if you're being weird about it, and, you're like, hey, like, how's it going? Like, are you okay? Like, are you safe right now? That's weird. Yep. That's weird. And that's a microaggression. Yeah. That's a microaggression.
Thank you. Yeah, I had Alison Desir. I don't know if you know her. No.
Yeah, I know.
I had her on the show. Well, it hasn't come out yet, but it will have come out by the time you come out. And the biggest thing she kind of said to that was, don't be weird about it. So that's kind of the same thing that you said. Okay, but let me just be devil's advocate for a second and say that, one of the things that someone listening might say, okay, well, I've been told that, I only have white friends. So I've been told that I need to surround myself with people of color and other black people. So if I'm not being weird about it and going up to that person because they're black, how do I increase my circle of color, like circle of friends to include people of color? And Aaron, I'll ask you that. And then Joshua, I want to go back to your original answer.
I think that you just can't, you have to ask yourself again, why do you want to be friends with this guy? Do you want to be friends with, I'll tell you a short story. When I was in college, my roommate, the first time I met him, when I got to my room, the first thing he said to me was, I'm so happy to have a black roommate.
Oh, God.
So he saw me as an experiment.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, so do you want to be my friend or do you want to just hang out with me to check the box and tell people I increased my diversity around me. Mm-hmm. So like I said, if you're at a party, it's almost, I don't even know if I want to relate this to it's almost like talking to girls to me. Like, it's kind of weird. It's kind of weird. Like if you're too aggressive, if you go up to a girl, like you don't even know anything about her and you just go up to her and say, hey, can I get your number? Mm. You look creepy. Mm-hmm. It's like, bro, do you want to just talk to me?
So you're saying don't go up to a black person and say, hey, will you be my friend?
No, I'm saying try to find something you have common with this person.
Yeah.
I'm saying if you're at a runner party and everyone's chilling and hanging out and it's your turn to be up playing the game, just talk to the person, and engage with them, but don't go into it being like, I have to make sure I got to win this person right now. Yes. I got to make sure they become my friend. I got to make sure they liked me and be super nice to me or, because we could sense that. And it's just, it's because do you think, I would ask that listener too, do you think black people have that thought when they talk to white people? Do you think they're like, hey, I need to make sure this white person is my friend? Or do you think they're just like, oh, But then wouldn't someone say, yeah, but like Joshua mentioned, one of you mentioned, I can't remember who it was earlier, about being the only black person on a team, or maybe it was at a certain level of running. What if that was kind of like, okay, well, why would you need to impress a white person because there's so many white people all around? Does that make sense? Yeah, no, and I definitely don't think. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm challenging you really hard here with these questions. I don't think black people think like that. Like they need to impress this person. Mm-hmm. They're just naturally themselves. That's why they're used to just I don't know, kind of being the only, and they just kind of especially if you're someone two black runners, you're always the only. So you're just yourself all the time. You don't really, you may have to code switch in situations of authority, but wait, I don't think I completely understand your question though. I think I messed it up. Well, just as you mentioned, a runner party. So you said, earlier on, I think it was you, Joshua, mentioned about, the higher up the chain you go in running, you kind of start seeing less and less black people running distance races. Yeah. So if you're in that situation, then you're not seeing many other black faces. So that white person who says, I want to, have some black friends, I want to increase, even if it is, like we said, check the box. They might be saying, well, your question was, why would a black person need to impress? Or you wouldn't think necessarily, I need to impress that white person. But if you were surrounded by white people in that situation, you wouldn't pick out that one person because there's so many people all around. I don't know if that makes sense. Yeah. I think that makes sense because often, definitely speaking on like a black runner, and if you've been surrounded, if you've been the minority and just the only one, you're already the token.
So like you're already the token, and as the token, you already have a lot of white friends. That's one thing. Like my parents will just like joke. We're keeping it real. Like they'll just joke. Like my brother that's closest to me, he plays football. So he played football, but he also throws shot and disc. So that's why he's still involved in track and field. But like a lot of his friends are black. A lot of his friends are black and Mexican. And then me and Aaron's and Caleb, a lot of our friends, since we did distance, was always white people or Mexican. So like seeing that is like, I'm not really seeking out, like, I don't, it's weird to say, but like to surround myself, I don't really need more white friends. Like I'm already the token of my own group. So to be I'm not really trying to impress you to become the token in your group. And I don't really, being a token isn't really like an honor per se. I just want to be your friend. Like if I'm gonna be the token, it's because I'm willing to be the friend with you, and it doesn't really matter because you're my guy or you're my girl, you know?
No, thank you for explaining that. And just as we're kind of getting towards the hour here, I want to start wrapping this up. As much as I think we could honestly talk for another hour easily, the running community in general, that's obviously going to be a big part of making a change here. So someone at a big brand or someone running organizations that are listening, what can they do? What do the brands, what do the big names, what does the running community as a whole need to do to make things more inclusive, to get things, you mentioned about the media, what needs to be done? So I'd love to hear, maybe Aaron, you can start.
Yeah, I think for the bigger brands, what you can do is definitely representation. So on one of these podcasts we listened to, people were giving Runner's World flack because on all of their magazine covers, it's just, a stereotypical white person. So like, that's definitely another like little barrier. Cause like, if you're someone from a predominantly black neighborhood, like you don't even like see yourself in running ever. So you wouldn't go out there. But I also think, the hiring process too, like getting more black people that work for these big brands and get that perspective in there, because like with media as well, I mean, maybe it's like hiring more athletes like me and Joshua. Like I think Running Report just seems so different because we've never seen a media platform for running that's, two black guys just running it. Like our lens is just gonna be different, just automatically. So I think definitely representation, hiring new people, and also like for the brands, like there has to be clubs out there that can get funding, that have more minorities or that are in like lower income like areas, like going into those communities and doing 5Ks there, or like doing like some type of like activation or event at some shoe store in a community like that. I think can definitely help.
Okay, thank you, Joshua.
And then to really just like piggyback off of what Aaron said, to speaking on more just like the brands and media, I feel like hiring and bringing more representation is always going to be the best way to go, especially if media companies were to hire people of more ethnic background and more people of minority. I feel like I know that we are all the human race and that we all want to go to that. Even some people would like to say like they're colorblind at times, but the reality of the situation.
Explain what that means for someone who doesn't know.
Being colorblind people would say like, I don't see color. I see everybody as being the human race. We're all human beings. But then the reality is that we're definitely colors. And that's the beauty of the human race, is that we're all different and that we all have our certain type of culture. So then to bring in that certain culture into this media outlet or into this brand that's predominantly white, and not only it not only looks better in like the brand, because I think a lot of cultures, that's why we like the Olympics. That's why we like sports like that, because we get to see a lot of cultures, shape and sizes and diversity. But also when you bring in that certain culture, that ethnic background that's not really represented, it brings in their swag. It brings in their culture. It brings in like the way they walk. And when you're able to see when someone like that is not even interested in running, and now they're able to see themselves, and they haven't been able to see themselves in running before, they can see how they run now. Like, that person runs just like me, and I want to be interested in that now. Yeah. And I feel like that's the biggest thing. And especially in media, I feel like that's the really big factor why there are a lot of, I know I'm going off, but like there's a lot of sprinters. There's a lot of sprinters that love running. They're all about running. But I don't feel like there's a lot of sprinters that are in the media side of running. They will watch more NFL, NBA. They'll know more NFL, NBA legends or anything like that, or soccer legends, even distance runners. They'll know more of those legends because they love the entertainment aspect of ESPN, of Bleacher Report, of Fox Sports, because they're able to see themselves on the screen, or they have the same, like people would say, they have the same swag of ESPN and Bleacher Report. And there's, in the running media space, there's not, I could personally just say, because as a Black person that loves ESPN, I don't feel like there's that same swag. Like there's not that same attitude of how they present everything. And that's the only way that's going to be reached is if there's more diversity in the space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you for explaining that. And I love that you guys are on this kind of journey to create that. And you started this episode by saying that's what you want to create. You want to make this a network, make it something that does encompass all of that. So really cool to kind of hear you explain the kind of reason behind it and what is missing. And what about, just to wrap up for both of you here, with the average person listening, what can they do? Not a big brand, maybe have 100 followers, share this podcast episode, share your podcast with friends to kind of get some education going. But what else can be done? What else can the average person do?
I think the number one thing that can do is, like, I know it's broad, but it's keeping the conversation going. Because I think someone that me and Aaron both look up to is LeBron James. And what just the other day, LeBron James was saying that Black Lives Matter is not just a protest. Like, it's not just a movement, it's life. Like, we live through this every single day trying to say Black Lives Matter. People have been trying to say Black Lives Matter for I don't know how long. So how long do you think we're going to have to keep on saying until Middle Eastern lives matter? Like, how long are we going to keep on saying like Asian people matter? Like, those phases are going to, or transgender people matter. Like, those phases are going to keep on coming up. And like, it's a life journey that we're all going on. So really keeping the conversation going by educating yourself. But like, I feel like it's weird to say, like, when a Black movie like Just Mercy comes out, it's not really a Black movie, but when a movie like that features Black stars, like, don't think you can't see that movie because you can't connect to it. Like, see that movie. There's a great story behind it, and learn where it's coming from. Like, I feel like I really love movies and TV. So I feel like there can be a lot to be learned through media and stuff like that. So if you're able to like immerse yourself in that and of all type of cultures and learning different things, that's definitely a starter place. And just with media and entertainment, it's just a discussion starter onto other things further and beyond, where you can talk with your family, talk with your friends, and introduce them to new cultures out there through entertainment.
And if you even think about Just Mercy in particular, that is something that you might watch it and think, okay, well, this was in the 80s. It's not like that anymore. But then you start to think about it and you're like, well, yeah, it is. Like, it might have changed slightly, but like it will make you, as you said, watching the media and on all those forms you mentioned will make you think more. So great suggestions there, and easy to do as well. It's not like you're asking people to spend their entire Saturday going across town to walk and protest, but that's something simple that can be done. Aaron, what would you add?
I would just add, like, I like what Joshua said. this work is never done. So like this is like a lifestyle for some people. They're like going through it. So just like don't ever think that like, you know, we're not really gonna like reach a point where it's just like, all right, this is over. This is something that we have to continually work at.
Yes.
Like we're born into, you know, a nation that we inherited some things, and we're just going to have to continue like working towards that. And we're going to have to unlearn things. And also like, don't be afraid to like talk about something just because you feel like you're going to be wrong. Like everyone has blind spots. Like I have blind spots too. So like, just don't be afraid. I would say one thing too is like talk to your family, because I feel like there's a lot of like people in this younger generation that we're seeing like out there on the streets getting it moving. But like really it's the older generation. When we start seeing them come out, that's when we can really start seeing like change. So I would say if you're really passionate about this, like talk to that family member. And also like my thing is too, like if you see something that's wrong, like call it out. Like the way I am, like I'm gonna say something. And I think that's what we're fighting for, because like I said earlier, I feel like a lot of Black people have things that happen to them all the time, but you know, you can't fight everyone, so you don't say nothing.
Yeah.
I think we're getting to a turning point now. It's like, nah, bro, that's not cool. Like I'm not standing for that. So that's like a big thing for me. It's like, I'm not saying attack this person or nothing, but like, you got to let people know that you don't think that's
agree.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like just don't
accountability.
Don't just let it slide. Like if someone says something, it's all good to be like, hey, I'm not cool with that, bro. I'm just letting you know. And this is why. And if they, after that conversation, if they still disagree, at least you know where they at and they know where you at.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you should be disgusted by stuff like that.
Yeah. Great. Thank you so much. Really, really good advice and things to think about. And really appreciate both of you being vulnerable, being honest, kind of really talking with me and the listeners about this. It's really, I believe, a way that we can, in our own little pocket of the running world, make a difference here. So thank you. All right. So round up here by telling us where people can find out more, what your social media is under, and just where they can find you.
Oh, so you can find Two Black Runners anywhere you listen to podcasts, from Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher.
And it's with the number 2, right? Not the word.
Yeah, with the number 2, capital B for Black, and then Runners, capital R. And then you can also just find us on the Runner Report on YouTube and Instagram. On Instagram, that's at running_report. And on the Instagram, you can just find just breaking news, fun stats, anything like that, bringing you entertainment and running news. Then on YouTube, you can find about the same thing and videos to our podcast. And just honestly, the YouTube, there's a whole catalog of just running news and running vlogs. That's really, I feel like really, really interesting at Running Sport on YouTube.
Yeah, and your conversations too, just kind of like we were doing today, very much like that, which has been very educational for me, and I'm sure will be for the listeners. Thank you both so much. I have appreciated this so much, and thank you for all you're doing to make the world a better place.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having us on and giving us a chance to come on here and speak. It was an honor. Can't wait to listen to this. What you guys say, Joshua?
I just want to say thank you one more time, because I feel like with the guests that we've had, like we've been surrounded and had the opportunity to sit down with so many like powerful women, from Marielle Hall to Corey Carter, and like to talk to Raven Rogers, and now you. Like we've been surrounded by so many powerful women, and I feel like I've realized over this past year, ever since I took my Women's in Histories class, and I had my junior year history teacher. She was like a woman. She was like a really like big feminist and stuff. And like I just realized just how powerful women are, and like who that AOC, like women are really gonna like this is, I don't know if this is your age, because it's always been like from the back in the day, y'all been killing it. But like I'm so glad that we're able to be surrounded by so many powerful women. It's very empowering that that we're able to be inspired by you guys. So I appreciate you for sure.
Oh, thank you. That means so much. And I want to pass that along to many of the women listening who I also feel the same way about speaking up in their own ways. So it's not just me. As you mentioned, there's a lot of people out there. And thank you for including me in that. My friends, if you have a minute and you could leave a review on your favorite podcast player, Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Stitcher, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Spotify, or whatever else podcast player you use to listen to this podcast, or if you would subscribe to this podcast, you will help me get out in front of new runners to make our tribe even bigger and even better. It might not seem like you as one person can make a difference, but really it helps a lot. And it shows me you appreciate the hard work I put in for those. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for listening to that episode. I could have easily talked to them for another hour, and it was just really eye-opening and enlightening. And I hope you found it helpful for you as you kind of navigate this dismantling of systemic racism and racist policies that we're trying to work through right now. I'm going to keep having episodes like that come. However, as I've mentioned, I don't want it to totally be the focus of the podcast. This is a running podcast, and I'm going to continue to relate things back to kind of running. And as you saw, that matched quite well, and it kind of helped us to understand the running industry and how it has contributed to things. So I hope you enjoyed that episode with Aaron and Joshua. Now, next week, I'm going to be interviewing Takia McClendon. So you can be sure to tune into that one. As of the time of me recording this, I actually haven't interviewed her yet, so I can't tell you exactly what he talked about, but I'm sure it's going to be a great chat, and I'm looking forward to it a lot. I should tell you that there's lots of links in the show notes today to go find stuff from Aaron and Joshua, and also just some resources that we've mentioned throughout the episode. You can go to tinamuir.com/episode 201. And be sure to go check out my sponsors for today. I really wouldn't be able to do all this without them. I wouldn't have been able to take time off for my maternity without them. So you can also check those links out in the show notes. And my friends, I look forward to chatting to you soon. And thank you so much for listening.
Thanks for listening to the Running for Real podcast. Be sure to check out tinamuir.com for show notes and even more helpful running information.